The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, but for centuries it had been ruled by one group above all others, the Krylos. These were not peaceful rulers. They were hunters, warriors who lived to conquer and dominate. Their leader, Kel Draven, was known across star systems as a fearless commander. Under his guidance, the Krylos traveled through space in their massive warship, the Eclipse Asterisk. It was a ship so large that it could block out the light of entire suns. For years, no species had dared to stand against them. The Krylos were seen as unstoppable, invincible even. Kel himself was a towering figure, both physically and in reputation. His dark armor gleamed under the artificial lights of the Eclipse Asterisk, and his sharp eyes missed nothing. He was proud of what he and his people had achieved. To him, hunting weaker species was not just about power. It was about proving their strength. Each conquest added another trophy to their collection. But lately, Kel had started to feel something unusual: boredom. The hunts had become too easy. None of the species they encountered put up much of a fight. It was almost as if the universe itself had run out of worthy opponents. That changed one day when a strange transmission reached the Eclipse Asterisk. It came from an uncharted region of space, far beyond the usual hunting grounds. The message was fragmented, filled with static, but one word stood out clearly: Earth. At first, Kel dismissed it as irrelevant. Earth? What kind of name was that? Surely it belonged to some insignificant planet, home to a primitive species like all the others they had crushed before. But then Ren Voss, Kel's trusted second-in-command, pointed out something odd. The tone of the message wasn't one of fear or submission. Instead, it carried a hint of defiance, almost as if whoever sent it believed they could resist. Curiosity got the better of Kel. Defiance was rare in the galaxy these days. Most species either surrendered immediately or tried to flee, only to be hunted down. This was different. Set course for Earth, Kel ordered, his voice calm but firm. The crew obeyed without question. As the Eclipse Asterisk moved toward its destination, Kel couldn't help but wonder what awaited them. Was this truly a challenge or just another waste of time? Days passed, and soon the blue planet appeared on the ship's view screen. From orbit, it looked peaceful, almost inviting. Green continents stretched across the surface, surrounded by vast oceans. Lights dotted the night side, signs of intelligent life. Kel studied the image carefully. There was something about this planet that intrigued him. Maybe it was the vibrant colors, or maybe it was the fact that its inhabitants didn't seem to know fear. Whatever it was, Kel knew one thing for certain: Earth would make an excellent hunt. Unbeknownst to the Krylos, the people of Earth were far from ready for such an encounter. On the surface, life continued as usual. In bustling cities, men and women went about their daily routines, unaware of the danger looming above. Among them was Sarah Mitchell, a scientist working tirelessly in her lab. She had spent years studying the stars, searching for answers to questions most people never thought to ask. Her colleague, Jake Carter, often teased her about spending more time looking at screens than sleeping. But Jake respected Sarah deeply. He knew her work mattered, even if he didn't always understand it. One evening, Sarah noticed something unusual in the data she had been analyzing. Strange signals, unlike anything she had seen before, seemed to be coming from deep space. At first, she thought it might be interference, but the patterns were too deliberate. Someone, or something, was sending a message. When Sarah shared her findings with Jake, his teasing stopped. Together, they realized the truth. Earth was being watched, and whatever was watching them was now heading straight for the planet. As panic began to spread among world leaders, humanity faced a choice. Would they cower in fear, or would they stand and fight? For Sarah and Jake, there was no question. They would do whatever it took to protect their home. Little did they know, their actions would soon catch the attention of the Krylos and change the fate of the galaxy forever. Sarah Mitchell stared at the computer screen, her fingers trembling as she adjusted the settings. The strange signals were clearer now, undeniable proof that something, or someone, was approaching Earth. She turned to Jake Carter, who stood leaning against the lab's metal table, arms crossed. "Jake, we need to tell someone about this," she said, her voice steady despite the unease building inside her. Jake frowned, stepping closer to look at the data. "You're saying aliens are coming here? Right now?" He sounded skeptical but not dismissive. After years of working with Sarah, he had learned to trust her instincts. Still, the idea of extraterrestrial visitors was hard to wrap his head around. "What makes you think they're hostile?" "It's not just a hunch," Sarah replied quickly. "Look at the patterns. These aren't random bursts. They're organized. And if they're heading straight for us, it's probably not for tea and cookies." Her attempt at humor fell flat, even to her own ears. The reality of the situation weighed heavily on both of them. Reluctantly, Sarah agreed to present her findings to the United Nations Security Council. It wasn't easy convincing world leaders to take her seriously. Some dismissed her claims as science fiction. Others demanded more evidence. But when she showed them visual simulations based on the signal data, a fleet of ships moving toward Earth, the room fell silent. For the first time in history, humanity faced a threat from beyond the stars. Governments scrambled to prepare defenses, though everyone knew it was a losing battle. Humanity's technology paled in comparison to what little Sarah could deduce about the approaching fleet. Fighter jets, missiles, and radar systems, all designed to fight wars among humans, seemed laughably outdated against an advanced alien force. Yet hope flickered in unexpected places. Civilian engineers, scientists, and pilots began volunteering their skills, determined to contribute however they could. Jake found himself thrust into a leadership role he hadn't asked for. A former Marine, he had experience piloting experimental aircraft during his service. Now those same planes were being repurposed for orbital combat. They weren't much compared to what the aliens likely possessed, but they were all Earth had. Jake assembled a team of civilian pilots, many of whom had never seen real combat before. He trained them relentlessly, drilling tactics into their minds until they could recite them in their sleep. Meanwhile, Sarah worked tirelessly to understand the enemy. Using the intercepted signals, she pieced together fragments of information. The invaders called themselves the Krylos, a name that sent shivers down her spine every time she said it aloud. Their language was harsh, guttural, and completely foreign, but buried within the transmissions were hints of their intentions: conquest, domination, eradication. Sarah didn't need to translate every word to grasp the meaning. The Krylos weren't coming to negotiate peace. As days passed, tension mounted worldwide. News outlets buzzed with speculation, spreading fear faster than facts. Families stockpiled supplies, cities braced for chaos, and governments debated whether evacuation plans were even worth attempting. Amidst the panic, Sarah and Jake remained focused. They couldn't afford to lose hope, not when so much depended on them. One evening, as Sarah reviewed new data late into the night, Jake entered the lab carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you could use this," he said, handing her one. She smiled weakly, grateful for the small gesture. "Thanks," she muttered, sipping the warm liquid. I keep thinking about how unprepared we are." "We've been unprepared for worse things," Jake replied, leaning against the desk. "Remember that hurricane back in Florida? No one saw it coming, but people still pulled through. We'll figure this out too." Sarah nodded, though doubt lingered in her eyes. "Let's hope you're right." The next morning brought grim news. Radar stations picked up movement near Earth's orbit. The Krylos had arrived. Massive ships descended from the sky, casting ominous shadows over cities below. Panic erupted as people realized the invasion was no longer theoretical. It was happening. Sarah watched from her lab window as drones zipped past, broadcasting live footage of the alien fleet. Each ship was sleek, metallic, and impossibly large. Humanity's puny weapons looked like toys in comparison. Jake's team sprang into action. Their makeshift squadron launched from hidden airstrips, flying toward the invaders. Though outnumbered and outgunned, they refused to back down. As the first shots rang out, Sarah clenched her fists, praying for a miracle. What happened next shocked everyone, not because the humans won, but because they fought back. Guerrilla tactics, unpredictable maneuvers, and sheer determination allowed Jake's team to inflict damage on the Krylos scouts. It wasn't victory, but it was enough to send a message. Humanity wouldn't go down without a fight. Back aboard the Eclipse Cal Draven observed the skirmish with growing unease. This species, so seemingly primitive, had managed to wound his forces. Confusion rippled through the ranks. How could the Eclipse loomed above Earth like a dark cloud, its massive frame blocking out the sunlight over entire continents? Inside the ship, Cal Draven stood silently, his sharp eyes fixed on the monitors displaying images of the blue planet below. Cities flickered with lights, cars moved along roads, and people went about their lives as if unaware of the danger hovering above them. But Cal knew better. He had seen the resistance firsthand. Their small ships darting through the sky, their weapons firing back despite being so weak. It was strange, almost unsettling, to see such defiance from what should have been easy prey. Cal turned to Rinvos, his second-in-command, who stood nearby. "Send the scouts," he ordered, his voice calm but firm. "Find out what these humans are capable of. If they think they can fight us, let's show them why they're wrong." Rin nodded and quickly relayed the command. Within moments, smaller Krylos ships detached from the Eclipse and descended toward Earth's atmosphere. On the ground, Jake Carter and his team prepared for another battle. They had returned to base after the initial skirmish, battered but alive. The damage they had inflicted on the Krylos scouts was minor, but it proved one thing: humanity wasn't completely helpless. Jake gathered his pilots in a makeshift briefing room. Maps and diagrams covered the walls, showing possible attack routes and weak points in the enemy's defenses. Sarah Mitchell joined them, her laptop open to display new data she had collected. "They're testing us," Sarah said, pointing to the screen. "These scout ships are just the beginning. Once they figure out our limits, they'll hit harder." Her tone was serious, but there was a spark of determination in her eyes. She refused to give up, even when the odds seemed impossible. Jake nodded. "Then we hit them before they get comfortable. We use their size against them. Stay fast, stay unpredictable. Hit and run. That's how we win this." His words boosted morale, even though everyone knew the risks. Their planes were outdated, their weapons inferior, but they had something the Krylos didn't: heart. As the Krylos scouts approached, Jake's team launched into action. The human fighters flew in tight formations, weaving between buildings and natural landmarks to avoid detection. When the aliens finally appeared, glowing beams of energy cutting through the sky, Jake gave the signal to attack. The humans struck quickly, targeting the weaker points of the scout ships. Explosions lit up the horizon as several Krylos vessels fell from the sky. But the victory was short-lived. Reinforcements arrived almost instantly, larger and more heavily armed than the first wave. Jake's team scattered, narrowly avoiding destruction. Back at base, tempers flared as frustration set in. "We can't keep doing this," one pilot shouted. "They're too strong." Sarah stepped forward, her voice steady. "We don't need to beat them outright. Not yet. We need to buy time. Every day we hold them off is another day we learn about them. And every piece of information brings us closer to finding a way to stop them." Her words calmed the group, reminding them of their purpose. As repairs were made and strategies adjusted, Sarah retreated to her lab. She pored over the data from the recent battles, searching for patterns or weaknesses in the Krylos technology. Hours later, she found something important. The Krylos relied heavily on neural implants embedded in their bodies. These implants enhanced their reflexes and coordination, making them nearly unstoppable in combat. But Sarah realized that if those implants could be disrupted, even temporarily, it might level the playing field. Excited, she rushed to share her discovery with Jake. "Listen," she said, spreading out schematics on the table. "Their implants are vulnerable to electromagnetic pulses. If we can create a trap using EMPs, we can disable their systems long enough to take them down." Jake studied the plans, his mind racing. "It's risky," he admitted, "but it's our best shot. Let's make it happen." Together, they devised a plan. Using decoy transmissions, they lured the Krylos into an abandoned industrial zone rigged with EMP devices. As the aliens entered the trap, the devices detonated, sending waves of electromagnetic energy rippling through the area. The effects were immediate. Several Krylos soldiers stumbled, disoriented, as their implants malfunctioned. Jake's team swooped in, taking advantage of the chaos to strike. Word of the ambush reached Kel aboard the Eclipse *. Watching the footage, he felt a rare surge of anger. How could these primitive creatures cause so much trouble? Determined to put an end to the resistance once and for all, Kale decided to take matters into his own hands. Strapping on his adaptive shielding, a personal force field immune to EMPs, he boarded a shuttle and descended to the surface. This time, he would face the humans himself. When Jake spotted the lone shuttle descending, he knew it had to be important. Grabbing his gear, he prepared for what might be the most dangerous fight of his life. Such an inferior race pose any real threat. For the first time in centuries, doubt crept into Cal's mind. Perhaps Earth would prove more challenging than he had anticipated. Kale Draven's shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, its sleek design cutting through the air like a blade. The Krylos commander stood inside, his armor gleaming under the dim lights. His adaptive shielding hummed softly around him, a barrier that no human weapon could penetrate. Kale was done waiting. He had watched his soldiers falter against this stubborn species, and it infuriated him. Now he would confront them directly and show them why the Krylos were feared across the galaxy. On the ground, Jake Carter received word of the incoming shuttle. At first, he thought it was another scout ship, but something about its trajectory caught his attention. It wasn't following the usual patterns. This one was different, more deliberate, more dangerous. Jake knew instinctively that whoever was aboard wasn't just another soldier. This was someone important, someone leading the invasion. Jake didn't hesitate. Grabbing his gear, he climbed into his fighter jet and took off, heading straight for the shuttle's landing site. Along the way, he radioed Sarah Mitchell back at the base. "I'm going after it," he said, his voice tense. "Whatever's inside that thing, it's big." "Be careful, Jake," Sarah replied, her tone laced with worry. "If they're sending their leader down here, they're not playing games anymore." "I know," Jake muttered under his breath as he approached the target zone. The shuttle touched down in an open field surrounded by dense forest. Jake circled overhead, scanning the area for movement. Moments later, the hatch opened, and Kale stepped out. The sight of the Krylos commander sent a chill down Jake's spine. Kale was taller than any human, his presence commanding and intimidating. But Jake pushed his fear aside. He had faced death before, both in the military and now in this war. If this alien wanted a fight, Jake would give him one. Landing his jet nearby, Jake stepped out, weapon in hand. The two figures stared at each other across the field, neither moving. Finally, Kale spoke, his voice deep and distorted by his translator device. "You are brave to stand against me, human. Few have dared." Jake tightened his grip on his weapon. "Bravery doesn't mean much when you've got nothing left to lose." Kale tilted his head, intrigued. Most species cowered in his presence, begging for mercy. This human was different. "You think your defiance will save you. You are insects compared to us." "Maybe," Jake shot back. "But even insects can sting." Back aboard the Eclipse *, Cal Draven retreated to his quarters, seething with anger. The wound on his side throbbed painfully, a constant reminder of his humiliating defeat at the hands of a human. Never before had he faced such resistance, let alone from a species so seemingly insignificant. For centuries, the Krylos had been unstoppable, a force feared across the galaxy. Yet here he was, injured and forced to retreat by an opponent who should have been nothing more than prey. Rin Voss approached cautiously, sensing her commander's fury. "Sir," she began, her voice steady but respectful, "the humans are proving more challenging than we anticipated." Kale glared at her, his sharp eyes narrowing. "Challenging," he repeated, his tone dripping with disdain. "They are insects, Rin. Insects do not challenge us. They are crushed underfoot." Rin hesitated but pressed on. "Then perhaps it is time to crush them entirely. We cannot afford further losses or delays. If we strike now, with everything we have, we can end this quickly." For a moment, Kale considered her words. Annihilating Earth would be easy. Just one concentrated attack could wipe out entire cities. But something stopped him. It wasn't fear or doubt. It was curiosity. These humans were unlike any species he had encountered before. Their defiance intrigued him, even as it infuriated him. Instead of obliterating them outright, Kale decided to shift tactics. He wanted to understand them, to figure out what made them fight so fiercely despite their obvious disadvantages. "Prepare the fleet for another assault," Kale ordered finally. "But this time, focus on capturing humans alive. I want prisoners, scientists, soldiers, anyone who might explain why they resist so recklessly." Rin nodded and left to carry out the order. As the Eclipse moved into position above Earth, its crew worked tirelessly to execute Cal's new plan. Below, humanity braced itself for another wave of attacks. News of Jake Carter's victory against Cal spread quickly, inspiring hope among those still fighting. People rallied behind their defenders, offering whatever help they could. Farmers donated food supplies, engineers built makeshift weapons, and ordinary citizens took up arms to protect their homes. Sarah Mitchell continued working in her lab, analyzing every scrap of data she could gather about the Krylos. She knew their next attack wouldn't be random. It would be calculated, precise, and when it came, humanity needed to be ready. Her research led her to develop experimental plasma-based weaponry designed specifically to counter the Krylos' advanced shields. Though untested, these weapons offered a glimmer of hope. Jake recovered from his injuries, though scars remained both physical and emotional. His encounter with Cal had shown him just how powerful the enemy truly was. But it had also proven that humanity could win, if only temporarily. He trained his pilots harder than ever, preparing them for what he knew would be their toughest battle yet. Every drill, every strategy session, was aimed at finding ways to exploit the Krylos' weaknesses. When the Krylos launched their second assault, it was different from the first. Ground forces descended in droves, targeting military bases and research facilities where humans coordinated their efforts. One of these targets was Sarah and Jake's base, hidden deep within a mountain range. Alarms blared as the invaders closed in, forcing everyone to spring into action. Jake led his squadron into the air once again, engaging the Krylos ships in dogfights while ground teams defended the perimeter. Inside the base, Sarah worked frantically to secure critical data, knowing it could mean the difference between victory and defeat. Explosions rocked the facility as Krylos forces breached the outer defenses. Despite the chaos, Sarah refused to leave her post. She uploaded vital information onto portable drives, ensuring it wouldn't fall into enemy hands. Just as the situation seemed hopeless, reinforcements arrived. Civilian volunteers armed with crude but effective weapons crafted from scavenged materials. Together, they pushed back the Krylos long enough for Sarah and the others to escape through underground tunnels. As the dust settled, Jake regrouped with the survivors outside the ruined base. Sarah joined them moments later, clutching the drives tightly. "We lost the base," she said grimly, "but we saved the data. That gives us a chance." Jake nodded, his expression resolute. "Then we keep fighting. No matter what they throw at us, we don't stop." Though battered and bruised, humanity stood firm. Each loss fueled their determination. Each setback strengthened their resolve. The Krylos may have thought they understood their enemy, but they underestimated one thing: the indomitable spirit of a species fighting for survival. The Krylos fleet regrouped above Earth, their massive ships casting long shadows over the planet below. Cal Draven stood on the bridge of the Eclipse asterisk, his jaw clenched as he stared at the view screen. Humanity had proven itself to be far more resilient than he had imagined. Their weapons were crude, their technology outdated, yet they kept fighting back with a ferocity that baffled him. Even after losing countless soldiers and destroying entire cities, the humans refused to surrender. Rin Voss approached cautiously, her voice steady but cautious. "Commander," she said, "our forces are stretched thin. The humans adapt too quickly. Every time we think we've broken them, they find new ways to resist." Cal's eyes narrowed as he turned to face her. "Adaptation is irrelevant if their planet becomes uninhabitable," he growled. "Target their moon. Destabilize its orbit, and let gravity do the rest." Rin hesitated, surprised by the order. "Sir, destabilizing the moon will destroy Earth completely. Are you certain this is necessary?" "It is not about necessity," Cal snapped. "It is about ending this defiance once and for all. If they value their home so much, let them watch it crumble." Back on Earth, Sarah Mitchell worked tirelessly in a hidden underground lab. Her team had salvaged equipment from the ruined base and set up a temporary command center. She analyzed data from recent battles, searching for patterns in the Krylos movements. Jake Carter joined her, leaning against a table as he reviewed maps of potential attack zones. "They're planning something big," Sarah said suddenly, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "Look at this. Energy readings spiking near the moon. They're targeting it." Jake frowned, stepping closer to see the screen. "What happens if they hit the moon?" "It could shift its orbit," Sarah explained, her voice tense. "If that happens, tidal forces would devastate Earth. Floods, earthquakes, maybe even extinction-level events." "We can't let that happen," Jake said firmly. He grabbed a communicator and called his squadron. "Listen up. We've got incoming enemy ships heading for the moon. Our job is to stop them, at any cost." The human fighters launched into space, their experimental interceptors struggling to keep pace with the sleek Krylos vessels. As they neared the moon, the scale of the attack became clear. Massive beams of energy lashed out from the Krylos ships, striking the lunar surface. Cracks began to form, chunks of rock breaking free and drifting into space. Jake's team dove into the fray, firing plasma-based weapons developed by Sarah's team. The new technology proved effective, piercing through the Krylos shields and disabling several ships. But for every enemy vessel destroyed, 2 more took its place. The odds were overwhelming. Inside the Eclipse asterisk, Cal watched the battle unfold. To his surprise, the humans weren't retreating. They were fighting harder than ever. He barked orders to his crew, directing reinforcements to focus on the interceptors. But just as the tide seemed to turn in favor of the Krylos, something unexpected happened. Sarah had remotely activated a hidden failsafe embedded in the human interceptors, a program designed to overload the core systems of nearby Krylos ships. One by one, the alien vessels began to self-destruct, caught off guard by the sudden surge of energy. The explosions created chaos among the Krylos ranks, giving Jake's team a brief window of opportunity. "Now," Jake shouted over the comms. His pilots regrouped and launched a coordinated assault on the remaining Krylos ships. Though outnumbered, they pushed forward, determined to protect the moon and Earth at all costs. As the battle raged, Cal realized his forces were losing control. Furious, he ordered his personal shuttle prepared for departure. "I will finish this myself," he snarled, strapping on his adaptive shielding once again. But before Cal could act, Jake spotted the Eclipse asterisk descending toward the conflict zone. Knowing it was now or never, Jake led a daring charge straight for the Krylos flagship. Plasma fire erupted around him as he dodged enemy attacks, closing in on the massive warship. With seconds to spare, Jake unleashed a concentrated barrage of plasma rounds, targeting the ship's engines. The Eclipse shuddered violently, its systems failing under the strain. Kale, realizing his flagship was compromised, issued a desperate retreat order. The surviving Krylos ships broke formation and flowed into deep space. Breathing heavily, Jake watched the invaders disappear. It wasn't a total victory. The moon had been damaged, and Earth still faced challenges. But it was enough. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity had forced the Krylos to back down. Back on Earth, celebrations erupted as news of the victory spread. Sarah hugged Jake tightly, tears streaming down her face. "We did it," she whispered. "We actually did it." Jake nodded, his expression weary but hopeful. "For now," he said quietly, "but we can't let our guard down. If they come back, we'll be ready." And though battered and scarred, humanity stood united, ready to face whatever came next. The Krylos fleet disappeared into the vastness of space, leaving behind a trail of wreckage and unanswered questions. On Earth, the survivors emerged from shelters, their faces etched with exhaustion but also relief. The immediate threat had passed, but no one believed it was truly over. Humanity had won a battle, not the war. Jake Carter stood on a hill overlooking what remained of a once bustling city, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. The scars of conflict were everywhere. Crumbled buildings, burned-out vehicles, and streets littered with debris. Yet amidst the destruction, there was hope. Sarah Mitchell joined him, carrying a tablet filled with data collected during the final battle. "We got lucky," she said softly, her eyes scanning the horizon. "If we hadn't overloaded their systems when we did." "We didn't just get lucky," Jake interrupted, his voice firm. "We fought smarter than they expected. That's why we're still here." Sarah nodded, though doubt lingered in her mind. "Still, Kale will come back. He doesn't strike me as someone who gives up easily." Jake sighed, knowing she was right. "Then we'll be ready. We've learned things about them, weaknesses we can exploit. Next time, we'll hit harder." In the weeks that followed, humanity began to rebuild. Governments worked together like never before, pooling resources and sharing technology. The experimental plasma weapons developed by Sarah's team became standard issue for Earth's defense forces. Civilian volunteers continued to play a crucial role, constructing new bases, repairing damaged infrastructure, and even training to defend their homes. People who had once lived ordinary lives now found themselves part of something greater, a united front determined to protect their planet. Sarah spent countless hours analyzing the data retrieved during the invasion. She discovered more about the Krylos neural implants, realizing that disrupting them could cripple not only individual soldiers but entire ships. Her findings inspired engineers to design new EMP devices capable of disabling larger areas, ensuring that humanity would have an edge if the Krylos returned. Meanwhile, Jake trained a new generation of pilots. Many of them were young men and women who had never flown a plane before the invasion. But desperation bred determination, and under Jake's guidance, they quickly learned how to operate the interceptors. His lessons weren't just about flying. They were about survival, teamwork, and resilience. "You don't win by being stronger," he told them repeatedly. "You win by being smarter." As news of humanity's resistance spread across the galaxy, other species took notice. For centuries, the Krylos had ruled through fear, crushing anyone who dared oppose them. But Earth had changed that narrative. Word of the blue planet's defiance reached distant star systems, sparking whispers of rebellion among oppressed races. Some even sent secret messages to Earth, offering support or sharing intelligence about the Krylos. Cal Draven, aboard what remained of the Eclipse brooded over his failure. He had underestimated humanity, and it had cost him dearly. His crew was restless, questioning his leadership for the first time. Morale plummeted as doubts spread. Could they really conquer a species so unpredictable? For Kale, the answer was clear: yes, But he knew brute force alone wouldn't work. Humanity required a different approach, one that involved patience, strategy, and perhaps even deception. For now, however, the galaxy held its breath. Earth had proven itself capable of standing against the Krylos, but at great cost. Cities lay in ruins, millions mourned their dead, and the scars of war ran deep. Yet despite everything, humanity endured. From the ashes of conflict arose a new era of cooperation and innovation. People who had once been divided by borders, languages, and beliefs now stood side by side, united by a common purpose. Jake and Sarah often found themselves reflecting on what had happened. They knew peace was fragile, that another attack could come at any moment. But they also knew something else. Humanity wasn't afraid anymore. Fear had been replaced by resolve, uncertainty by courage. Whatever challenges the stars might bring next, Earth was ready to face them head-on. And somewhere, far beyond the reaches of known space, Kel Draven plotted his next move. Humanity had earned a temporary reprieve, but the Krylos were not done hunting. Not yet.